All right. And unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Good evening, everyone. Can you see me over the music stand? And hi in Zoom land, I see Scott. Not sure if anybody else is on there. I think it's just us. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on this beautiful day. We were wondering if anyone would come in today. So gorgeous, but hey, here you are. And welcome new people. I did. I think it started. Yeah, okay. Can everybody hear me in the back? Okay. All right, so today I'm going to continue on our historical talks about our women ancestors. And we have the person that I'm going to talk about today, one of them is Miaoxin. And we have a Miaoxin here in our group. So anyway, so I entitled this talk, Miaoxin and Finding Confidence in Our Own True Buddha Nature. So in continuing with our spring series, I'm going to do a little bit of historical stuff first. I would like to introduce Miaoxin. So Miaoxin lived in the 9th century in China and was a student of Yangshan. And he was alive from 803 to 887. So Miaoxin would not even be known to any of us had it not been for Eihei Dogen. Somehow he knew, historically he knew the stories, he knew about Miaoxin, and he extolled her understanding of the Dharma and made it known that the Dharma and true understanding are not restricted to being born in a male body. He discussed this in a chapter called Making a Vow and Getting the Marrow, and it's called Raihai Tokuzui. And it's a chapter, a fascicle in Shobogenzo. So many people are familiar with that. Many are in Chris's Dogen group. And I'm not sure where that falls in one version of Shobogenzo. I don't know because I think it's different. I got it from the Soto Shu, and I meant to bring that for people to see because it's a recent translation and it's 8 volumes and with lots of footnotes, as Chris said. But I really like it. It's very precise and it gives a lot of information. So anyway, I actually got his little fascicle from that book, but we're really familiar also with Kaz Tanahashi's The True Dharma gate. The Treasury of the True Dharma, right? So in this fascicle, Miaoxin is featured and her interaction with 17 monks at the temple gate is explained in detail by Master Dogen, although his telling is the only historic account of her life. So everything that we see, every time we see things about Miaoxin, it really came from Dogen. This fascicle is really famous for Dogen's explicit teachings on not getting caught in male or female or any particular form, but choosing a teacher or leader solely based on if they have a good understanding of the true Dharma. So the story goes as follows in Dogen's words. I'm going to read from the translation that in the Soto Shu. When Yangshan was choosing a director of the Office for Secular Affairs, Public Affairs, he asked widely among the retired seniors and junior officers who the person should be. After an exchange of questions and answers, Yangshan said in the end, Xin, the disciple from Hui. though she may be female has the determination of a great person. She's certainly qualified to serve as the director of the office. All the assembly agreed, and Miaoxin was appointed director. And it says, as a footnote, well, it says, at the time, the dragon elephants in Yangshan's assembly did not resent it. So in the footnote, it says dragon elephants was a term for superior religious practitioners. So after she'd taken up her position once, when she was in the office, there were 17 monks from Shu who banded together to seek out a teacher and inquire about the way, thinking to climb Yangshan mountain. And just an FYI, I'm sure many people know that the Chinese masters were named after the mountain that they lived on or lived by. So there was a mountain, Yangshan. So anyway, they had come and they decided to take up lodgings at dusk in this office of secular affairs with where Miaoxin worked. So someone brought up the eminent ancestor Chao Xi's wind and banner story. And so this is really a famous tale about the sixth ancestor, Huining, and two monks arguing over whether it was the wind or the banner that moves. And Huining stopped them and said, it's not the wind that moves. It's not the banner that moves. It's your mind that moves. And so that was the whole big famous story. So Dogen continued, what every one of the 17 monks had to say said it wrong. At that time, Miaoxin, director of the office, could hear the monks discussing from the other side of the wall. And she said, 17 blind donkeys. How sad. How many pairs of straw sandals have they wasted? The Buddha Dharma they've never even seen in their dreams. That's what she said. Well, at the time, there was a postulant who is a lay candidate for ordination. Hearing Miaoxin's disapproval of the monks, told the 17 monks what she said. None of the 17 monks resented the disapproval of the director of the office, Miaoxin. Ashamed that they could not get it, they straightway donned proper attire and offering incense and making vows requested instruction. This is still from Dogen's review of the story. Miaoxin said, come forward. As the 17 monks were still moving, she said, it's not the wind moving, it's not the flag moving, and it's not your mind moving. So instructed in this way, all 17 monks had an insight. Bowing in thanks, they adopted the correct behavior of disciples to a teacher and became her students. And they quickly returned to the Western Shu, and in the end, they never climbed Yangshan Mountain. So Dogen ends by saying, truly, this is not something that could be reached by the 3 worthies and 10 stages. It is the work of the way of successor after successor of Buddhas and ancestors. So this story from Dogen is also in The Hidden Lamp, one of the selections in The Hidden Lamp, edited by Florence Kaplow and Susan Moon, a favorite resource for many of us, and a favorite, resource for putting together our talks. We've used a lot of things from Hidden Lamp. So in The Hidden Lamp, Myoan Grace Shearson was the commentator for this story. And some of you know Grace, and Myoan Grace Shearson is a well-known teacher in the Soto Zen tradition in our lineage. And she's a Dharma heir of Sogen Mel Weitzman, who also gave transmission to our founding teacher here, Zoketsu Norman Fisher, and to my teacher, Ryushin Andrea Thatch. So Grace describes how Dogen emphasized in the fascicle of Getting the Morrow the importance of being willing to receive teachings without attachment to a teacher's formal title or rank. She goes on to say that his instructions in this fascicle so supported women as equal partners that the 20th century Soto Zen nuns referenced it to reclaim their place as full Dharma successors in the Dogen lineage. So as I mentioned earlier, the story of the wind, banner, and mind came from a koan handed down from the time of Huining, the sixth patriarch who was alive 638 to 713. And to recap, it is said that the early monks were arguing about the wind and the banner. It's not the wind that moves, it's the banner. It's not the banner that moves, it's the wind. And Huining, intervening, saying, it's not the wind that moves, it's not the banner that moves, it's your mind that moves. But this story, on the lips of the 17 monks, bored Miaoxin. In Grace Shearson's commentary, she points out that Miaoxin was uninterested in the rehashing of someone else's insight. And this was a really important point, I think. How often am I stopped short by my own teacher for doing exactly that? She's not interested in my rehashing of someone else's experience. So I would venture to say that it wasn't even the answer in words that Miaoxin gave to the monks that made a shift. It was how she elicited the action that helped them cut through. It was the come forward. And in this coming forward, their intellects were halted. The movement helped strip them of the old stale answers, freed themselves of someone else's answer that they had not directly experienced. She got them to move out of their heads and into their bodies, into the here and now. She offered an invitation to break free. So I didn't catch this the first time I read it. I too was caught in pondering the words and wondering if I could solve the puzzle. Grace Shearson notes that Miaoxin's disapproval of pilgrimage as a spectator sport reminds us that Zen's core teaching is to get off the sidelines and jump in. Her commentary portrays an example of confidence by illustrating both the factor of her experience, I'm talking about Grace now, her experience combined with her innate trust in herself, as follows in the next story. Grace writes about a time when she was about 16 years old and she was at the beach. She arrives to see 6 adults yelling instructions on the side of the beach from the shore to a child about 8 years old. And the child was frozen and starting to panic over the ferocity of the waves. Grace states that she loved the ocean and she trusted its unpredictable rhythm with her body. She says she did not trust the family whose spoken advice separated them from actual conduct, standing there yelling on the shore. And suspected the same was true of the boy who was really starting to panic. So fed up with the recycled wisdom, as she says, of the adults, she immediately jumped in, swam to the boy, and says that her actual presence, just coming to meet him, was all that he needed to remember that he could swim too. I keep putting this in front of you, Scott, I'm sorry. Of course, when we think about developing confidence, we think about direct experience as a factor. You can't develop confidence, for example, in doing a complicated procedure by merely reading about it. You can't really develop an ease in any task by watching others do it. I see that I've developed confidence in certain skills because I've jumped in there and done them sometimes willing and sometimes not so willing, but I did them anyway, to take the risk to jump in and do it. So as I was reading this, I too recalled a favorite saying of my own, and it was from the book, The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. Did anyone read that? I loved that book. Yeah. Anyway, the thing I love the most about it is it was a really moving and funny story, novel about the complex bonds between mothers and daughters. But Sita, the daughter, frets often about right decisions and hesitant about life in general. And her mother, aggravated with this constant fear of getting out of the sidelines, says, "It's life, Sita. You just get on the beast and ride." And I love that saying. I think it was there to remind me. So that jumping in allows for actual experience, which then develops a trust in self. It's the experience that allows for the confidence to develop. Then it's in your bones instead of in your head. It's like the difference between being in Paris versus seeing someone else's photos of it. Once you've been there, then when you see the photos, your whole body recognizes it. You remember the feel of it, not the imagined version of it. So if we have done something some time after time after time, though, it sometimes kind of gets dull or loses its interest. So we need to keep our awareness, I think. So a really good example of that is our chanting. So if we chant all the time, and if we do it over and over and over without really even being there, it's very different. And I remember Andrea, my teacher, saying that Mel Weitzman told her with chanting that it's really important to be there for every single syllable and really enunciate and and keep the beat so that you're just present for every single one. And when you're mindful with things that are repetitive, sometimes that often helps. So the more I worked on this koan and commentary preparing for the talk, the more I really felt that the task, the true job of the teacher, what it really is, and what she or he is trying to do for a student. So you guys can see if you agree. How do we let go of living in our heads? How do we move out of our doubt around our innate Buddha nature while trying to give answers that we think are the right ones? I see how our teachers are trying to help us break free of this, just as Miaoxin was doing with the 17 monks. So years ago, this reminds me of years ago, I was in a dokusan with Jack Duffy Roshi at Mountain Lamp, and he was asking, they did koan study, and he was asking a question, a chance to have trust in my true nature, in my Buddha nature. The bird song, is it coming towards you or are you going towards it? My intuition instantly told me no. It was clear and immediate, but my little self didn't have the confidence for my deeper truth to answer. My intellect took over, and I wrestled with the question logically, trying to find the right answer, even though I knew it was wrong. So I took one of the trap answers. Meanwhile, my inner self was screaming, no, no. But I did it anyway. So I'm sure Jack knew why I answered what I did. He knew where I was at in that instant of my practice, in that instant, in that moment. But he had faith that I innately had the wisdom, as we all do, but wasn't able enough to trust enough to bring it forth right at that moment. But I think back on that thing, oh, if I just had one more chance, I would say no. Anyway. So there's more to developing confidence than just our experience. I think it's this trusting of our Buddha nature, of our innate wisdom. It's having a deep faith in it and having an ability to risk more and more over time and allowing it to have a voice. Often instead, we allow our fear that we're so used to carrying, and all the conditioning factors that go into that fear, we're really, we override our wisdom and we follow our intellect to come up with the answer all of the time, even though we know it's wrong. But we can exercise this innate wisdom. This is what our practice does. So the more we're aware of the workings of our habit energies, the more we can see through them and lessen the power that they have over us. A fresh answer is available to us in every moment. So Grace ends her commentary with the following paragraph directed at all of this. And I love this. It isn't the wind. It isn't that the wind doesn't move. It isn't that the banner doesn't move. It isn't that our mind doesn't move. What moves me? And perhaps what allows me to trust in my own wisdom in the moment? And then she invites us with one more question. How do you meet the ancient teachings in a way that keeps them alive? So those are our two questions for the night. So I'd like everybody to get out and get in breakout rooms. I mean, not rooms, breakout spaces. How many people are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, except for me. So I think that's good. So if we can get into groups of 3, I think that'll work just right. So if you want to find your group, you don't have to, you can move around, you can find somebody new, you can, whatever you want to do. We'll probably, yeah. So the questions are, you can pick one, thank you. You can pick both, you can do whatever you want, but one of them was, she said, what moves me? Perhaps, you can rephrase that. What allows me to trust my own wisdom in the moment? So that's one. And the other one, yeah, okay. So she said, what moves me? What allows me to trust my own wisdom in the moment? So that's one. And the other one is, how do you meet the ancient teachings in a way that keeps them alive? So those are
spread out throughout the room, so we're not.
Yeah, maybe everybody spread out a little because you're going to be hearing each other's. Yeah, you can go anywhere in the room, your group. And we'll do 5 minutes for each person, and I'll ring a bell. And Scott, maybe you and I can be in a corner. We'll scoot. Well, we'll be quiet. Maybe we'll just stay right here. Okay. Anybody else need the question one more time? Okay. So one of the questions is, what moves me in the way that, what allows me to trust my own wisdom in the moment? That's one. The other one, if you want to talk about it, is how do you meet the ancient teachings in a way that keep them alive? So you can pick whichever or do both. All right.